Origins of the Oracle. The earliest account of the origin of the Delphic oracle is provided in the Homeric hymn to Delphic Apollo, which recent scholarship dates within a narrow range, around 580–570 BC. It describes in detail how Apollo chose his first priests, whom he selected in their swift ship. They were Cretans from Minos city of Knossos who were voyaging to sandy Pylos. But Apollo, who had Delphinus as one of his cult epithets, leapt into the ship in the form of a dolphin, Delphinos. Dolphin Apollo revealed himself to the terrified Cretans, and bade them follow him up to the place where you will have rich offerings. The Cretans danced in time and followed, singing like the paeans of the Cretans in whose breasts the divine muse has placed honey-voiced singing. G. L. Huxley observes, if the hymn to Delphic Apollo conveys a historical message, it is above all that there were once Cretan priests at Delphi. Robin Lane Fox notes the Cretan bronzes are found at Delphi from the 8th century onwards, and Cretan sculptures are dedicated as late as around 620–600 BC. Dedications at the site cannot establish the identity of its priesthood, he observes, but for once we have an explicit text to set beside the archaeological evidence. An early visitor to these dells of Parnassus, at the end of the 8th century, was Hesiod, who was shown the Omphalos. There are also many later stories of the origins of the Delphic oracle. One late explanation, which is first related by the 1st century BC writer, Diodorus Siculus, tells of a goat herder named Coridas, who noticed one day that one of his goats, who fell into a crack in the earth, was behaving strangely. On entering the chasm, he found himself filled with a divine presence and could see outside of the present into the past and the future. Excited by his discovery, he shared it with nearby villagers. Many started visiting the site to experience the convulsions and inspirational trances, though some were said to disappear into the cleft due to their frenzied state. A shrine was erected at the site, where people began worshipping in the Late Bronze Age, by 1600 BC. The villagers chose a single young woman as the liaison for the divine inspirations. Eventually she spoke on behalf of gods. According to earlier myths, the office of the oracle was initially held by the goddesses Themis and Phoebe, and the site was initially sacred to Ge. Subsequently it was held sacred to Poseidon, the earth shaker god of earthquakes. During the Greek Dark Age, from the 11th to the 9th century BC, the arrival of a new god of prophecy saw the temple being seized by Apollo, who expelled the twin guardian serpents of Ge. Later myths stated that Phoebe or Themis had given the site to Apollo, rationalizing its seizure by priests of the new god, but presumably, having to retain the priestesses of the original oracle because of the long tradition. Apparently Poseidon was mollified by the gift of a new site in Troezen. Diodorus also explained how, initially, the Pythia was an appropriately clad young virgin, for great emphasis was placed on the oracle's chastity and purity to be reserved for union with the god Apollo. The scholar Martin Litchfield West writes that the Pythia shows many traits of shamanistic practices, likely inherited or influenced from Central Asian practices, although there is no evidence of any Central Asian connection at this time. He cites the Pythia sitting in a cauldron on a tripod, while making her prophecies in an ecstatic trance state, like shamans, and her unintelligible utterings,